I'm going to now talk here, and I'm usually more excited to present, but this particular one kind of hurts. We lost an amazing person, and I'd like to spend my time sharing the life and work of Jarlath O'Neill Dunn, who I've been closely working with for many years here. And this particular presentation is going to be on a project that we're working on, but I really want to spend some time just celebrating him as well. Jarlath has inspired me on my path in forest health, and along with using remote sensing to identify tree stress. I was chatting with one of my current colleagues and one of his former grad students this morning, and he said two things. If you're going to do this talk, you should bring a goat, and you should also accentuate the awkwardness. And in true Jarlath fashion, instead of just two things, he gave me a third. He said, you'll also need a farmstead and a head of cattle just to really push on it. This is Jarlath O'Neill Dunn. On January 6th, just about a month ago, we lost a giant in the urban forest community and forest health community. Jarlath was the director of the Spatial Analysis Lab at the University of Vermont. He was also in a joint appointment with the United States Forest Service. And right up until the end, he was working on everything from forest health assessments, foliage outlooks, which are very important in the New England area, and this massive monumental flood event that happened in New York and Vermont in July 2023. This is also Jarlath. This is one of the things that I love the most about him. Jarlath always brought the best out of everyone. There you see him working closely with his team. That's a lamb that they were raising, had a diaper on just to keep him inside as he worked on things, and his dog there. Just a truly fascinating and amazing person. If you've ever run the Vermont Marathon or the Burlington Marathon at mile 18, you would have enjoyed the music of Sciatica, where Jarlath was the the cowbell player. It just an amazing person. This is just an email snippet that I wanted to share as well. We were trying to schedule a meeting to get this work done on urban assessments, and in true Jarlath fashion, he said, I think it would be beneficial to reschedule. I'm on vacation the week of the 4th, struggling to balance the patriotism I feel of having served in the U.S. military with a holiday that celebrates the separation of the U.S. from my birth nation. And if you know Jarlath, that would ring true to fashion. My journey into mapping and monitoring and tree health has been, again, closely related to all of our colleagues. I am a forest entomologist by education, and I've been very interested in remote sensing, which brought me invasive species, but all things tree health ultimately. This is just an example of where we started. I was working on a project where we were mapping emerald ash borer mortality, or ambitious to map emerald ash borer mortality, and Jarlath was one of the very stern voices of reason in letting us know we needed to take a step back and to really think more on the tree side and tree health side before focusing on the invasive species or pest side, which was very insightful to me. We did take a step back and we learned a tremendous amount, and it has propelled me to a point where I am now about 15 years later. This is the project that we are currently working on. We are working on a manuscript. Rich Hallett is one of my colleagues on this, and Rich has taken the lead on developing this manuscript. So I'm not going to get too much into the details of this project, but to just share quickly, our team was working on urban tree health monitoring in Philadelphia. We were able to map 315,000 trees there, looking at some change detection. And I'm going to talk a little bit about change detection here. From 2019 to 2021. Chicago, almost 500,000 trees mapped, looking at change between 2019 and 2023. And St. Louis, over 800,000 trees mapped between 2022 and 2023, looking at the change there. Ultimately, Jarlath's ability to dissect and navigate and simplify information from images in both the 2D and three-dimensional states or landscape was unmatched. When we look at this image, we're looking at some two-dimensional information in the form of ownership or landscape use, species, and heights. And we're also looking at a lot of shadows, and those shadows cause a tremendous amount of difficulty when we're trying to get the information on the side of these forest health assessments. Bringing in elevation information from LiDAR is extremely important. This is what makes working in urban landscapes more manageable, particularly tree canopy and wall-to-wall land cover mapping. As you see here, once you bring in that LiDAR information, it certainly simplifies things, but brings the information that we are most interested in out, so that we can capture that vegetation and really get at the health side of things. We can also then develop these land cover maps, which is extremely valuable to managers and practitioners for making decisions. Quickly on the LiDAR side of things, Bill got into their use on LiDAR as well, and I just wanted to share there are different forms of LiDAR. There are different topographic data quality levels that we can get. The QL0 and QL1 is kind of the sweet spots or the Goldilocks LiDAR, where we can actually get quite a lot of information with these half-meter digital elevation models. The QL2 and QL3 information is a little bit more coarse, very valuable, and we can still glean quite a bit of information out of it. But the QL0 and QL1 is a great data source if you can obtain it. With that QL1 data, as Bill was doing with LiDAR and nape imagery, you're able to map individual stems, really differentiate between coniferous and deciduous trees, determine size and crown heights, along with additional optimal information for decision makers as we look at the health, the growth or loss or change over time in terms of determining whether a species is of value in these environments, or we should be thinking about planting other species. QL1 LiDAR also allows us to get at some other information. Here we're looking at just basic heights and information. This is a lot more valuable than just producing a surface and saying this is where the vegetation is. We now can tell the size classes and condition of these trees, along with getting at to change. So the change detection side of things would be basic change detection. A 2-date change detection would be looking at one date in time and another date in time of the same area. The problem with that is, as you look at this image, I'm going to toggle back and forth. It's the same image over 2 different timestamps, but you see these shadows change. And the big thing about the shadows, as we look at that, the time of collection, the date of collection, the angle of the sun, everything is going to have a direct influence on those shadows. And it's really the LiDAR that allows us to correct and improve on what we're looking at, so we can get exclusively at the vegetation information and how that changes over time. So here's the LiDAR data from time 1 to time 2. And with that, we get to the change versus no change, and change in the form of gains and losses. So whether or not these canopies are growing out or shrinking or dying back, versus no change at all. Again, the shadows are shifted, and that's really, with the LiDAR, we're able to get around that. And that's an important thing that we actually have taken into the forest area. I'm working on a project in Oregon right now where we're looking at white bark pine in some very steep terrain, and we use Jarlath's logic in terms of using shadows and getting around shadows around buildings to getting around some of these shadows in steep terrain. Again, taking the data a step further, when you have this information, you can break it down across different townships and really look at these canopy changes over time and how that equates to decision making in commercial, industrial, institutional, mixed use areas, public open spaces, residential, and rights of way. And again, whether or not those changes are in the forms of gains or losses or no change at all. Shifting over to some unmanned aircraft system work. This is just to highlight again some of the work that Jarlath was directly involved in, integrating LiDAR and multispectral high-resolution imagery or multispec sensors for tree canopy mapping at a smaller scale, particularly useful for temporal flights for foliar change. Again, color change in Vermont or New England is extremely valuable. It's a extremely important rec industry, and this kind of information goes a long way to get out in terms of traffic and rec use. It also really helps when we're looking at defoliation events. Here we have a healthy Vermont forest, and here we have the same area defoliated by the spongy moth. The cool thing about LiDAR is it really helps us to identify these canopies with their healthy tissue on, and with the loss of that tissue and what that looks like in a 3D plot here. You can see these the red scatter plot is the healthy undefoliated tissue. The green is the completely defoliated stems. If you're familiar with spongy moth, they can get quite aggressive when they reach outbreak status. They will defoliate or consume all of the tissue on their hosts. And then as populations are still growing, they will drop down and consume tissue on everything from pine species or coniferous species to the understory shrubs, and can be a complete nuisance in terms of massive defoliation. So really, kind of spinning back to this workflow and how we approached the Philadelphia, Chicago, and St. Louis data, temporal resolution, spectral coverage, in combination with field data. And the field data is coming in the form of both citizen science and just out and measuring plot data, leveraging past work, and then crossing off that species. As I talked in the beginning, one of my focuses in the very beginning was the holy grail, as we would say, and trying to go directly at, this is emerald ash borer, or this is a direct invasive species, and really just focusing more on health. Once you step back and focus on health, it allows you to get at some of those greater questions. It also allows us to make better decisions. What does it all mean? As Bill started to get into the earliest type of a conversation, I think of it as sort of the Goldilocks statements rather than the Holy Grail. There is no definite answer or landing spot. I think we're just always trying to push ourselves to find things as early as possible. It particularly helps in the forms of decision making. So here I give a couple of examples, and being able to get information to practitioners. This is a red maple mapping exploration around the Worcester area. Dodds et al. Found that Asian longhorn beetle prefers red maple as they move off of their hosts into forested areas. So this was just an opportunity for us then to use high resolution imagery, bringing LiDAR in as well, and being able to map red maple as it senesces. And the red maples tend to senesce a little bit earlier than most other species, making it a little bit easier to map. And we also looked at some of the leaf off imagery and how those canopy structures looked with the high level QL1 LiDAR. Hemlock mapping as well. Hemlock, very distinct crowns. Their skeletons, as they are killed by hemlock woolly adelgid, remain in forests for many years. So it's interesting to look at this. We've spent some time comparing some of the mortality rates in the southern states versus the mortality rates in the northern states. Found that they still kill trees. It just takes from less than 5 years to about 5 to 10 years as you move to the northern latitudes. But again, very valuable in terms of mapping mortality over time, or just being able to assess the health of hemlock. And that's a point where some of the folks around the Lake George area are very concerned right now, Lake George, New York, that is, as they look at a hemlock woolly adelgid infestation that is encroaching the Adirondack Park. And then just lastly, again, I want you to remember Jarlath O'Neill Dunn. This is a guy who would always push the envelope on everything. He was a brilliant scientist, an amazing person, a gentle, kind, caring person, wanted to bring in goat or lamb crossfits. If you want to think about the cowbell maybe a little bit more seriously as a musical choice, please do. But I want to honor this man and his work, and I hope that we can do your legacy justice and continue to push the boundaries, and thank you.